So today, the webinar is, as usual, part of the productivity program. We've got a couple of new people who haven't been on these series before. Today, we're looking at the top level of the business hierarchy of needs, and we're talking about sparking legacy. Okay, so the next 3 sessions today and 2 more webinars are all going to be about creating legacy. And legacy means lots of different things, and hopefully you'll see that it's not just about having an exit strategy or selling the business on, or going to the business until eventually it dies on its feet. There's lots of different things we're going to look at. So lots of things we're going to talk about today as part of the first thing, which is ongoing adaptation. As always, I'd recommend each of you to reach out to the productivity program. You probably have seen, I don't know if you have seen, that the Greater Lincoln City Council and Lincolnshire County Council have all launched funds this week. Those funds, one are accessible directly through the various portals, but through things like the productivity program, through the local enterprise partnerships, different funds are becoming available. There's digital growth vouchers, there's lots of different things. So things are definitely changing, and money is starting to come through. Lots of criteria, lots of hard work to get the money, no doubt about it. But certainly reach out to as many people as you can to find out things about this. Questions and hot topics. As I say, if you can use a chat box. If there's anything you want to ask outside of the topic of this webinar, I'm also happy to talk through it, answer any questions. We're a little bit late starting, so I will give you advance warning. We probably are going to go about 5 minutes over, and I'll try and cover off any questions before we end and sort of pick the pace up as we go through. Make sure you've got something to write on. Make sure you've got something to drink. I've got my honey and lemon here at the side of me to keep the voice going. Take plenty of notes as you go along. There are going to be lots of opportunities for you to take things out of your head and put them down onto paper. So please take as many notes as you can. As we're hearing from Jackie and from Frank earlier, it's about doing something with what you're listening to and what you're learning in today's webinar. And I also want you to be engaging and share back. So if you've got something that as being a blinding flash of the obvious, if you've got something that you suddenly realize, why haven't I done that before, or I'm going to go out and do that, share it. Put it in the chat box. Share it with each of us so we know that it might be something we can look at. Let's use that peer-to-peer group to work on that as well. That would be great. So let's get started on the content. We've got the housekeeping out of the way. What is legacy? Okay, so I tried to look at various definitions, and everyone has a story of what legacy is. And for me, legacy is the gap filler. It's the, I'm in business, what happens next? So it's the answer to then what. Okay, legacy doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be right at the sort of the terminal part of the business. Legacy is about filling that gap between now and what is next. What is next? Okay. The other thing with legacy is what others say when you're not there. It's what do people say about you? What do people say about your business? What do people say about your product, your service, your team when you're not there, when the business is without you? Okay. Or when they're saying it in corridors down on the incubation unit or something like that. For some, legacy might mean contribution. It might be you want to leave a legacy of contributing towards either something within the business, people within the business. It might be charity. It might be life outside business. For me, the legacy of everything that I've done in all my businesses, and this is my story, whether it's been the building company that I've had, the garden center, the aviation company, the training business, the e-learning academy, all the different businesses that I've had, coaching that I have now, it's about helping people live out their lifetime dreams. Okay, so my legacy isn't about what I do, it's about what I enable other people to do. Okay, that's my legacy. I want them to feel that they benefited from that experience with me. So for some, it's your own lifetime opportunities. For me, it's about helping other people achieve their lifetime opportunities. So I want you, this is where you start writing the notes down. I want you to think about, just jot something down. Don't give it too much thought, but just give some initial thought to it and jot it down. What does legacy mean to you? Because that's the level we're talking about. We're talking about this giving back. If you remember, the first 3 levels of the business hierarchy of needs were about what the business gets, building those foundations, building that business where it can then start to give. It can start to have an impact on people inside the business, people outside the business, and it can start to leave that legacy. And legacy from the business hierarchy of needs is permanence. It's something that stays, something that sticks. Okay, so what's your definition of legacy? And each of you will have your own version. There is no right, there is no wrong version. There's just your version. And that might change as we go through the rest of this webinar. So last time we talked about the first 3 levels. Sales equal cash. Profit gives stability to the business. Order, particularly with the program that we're on now, is about productivity and efficiency. Impact is transformation. If you remember, transformation wasn't just transformation in your business. It was, how does your product or your service transform your clients, your supply chain? Okay. And the question I want you to think about is it okay to stick here? And for many businesses, yes, it is. Okay. There is, again, no problem with making money, being stable, staying in business, being more efficient, and having an impact on your clients. For some, it's perfectly okay to stay there. And I was talking to George earlier on, and we were talking about the need for sort of evolution and change. And we're going to talk about that in today's webinar. And it really is focused on legacy. But every single level, whether it's cash, stability, efficiency, or transformation, can have change, should have change, should have evolution in there. But the thing I would say with legacy is about permanence, and permanence is about staying ahead of your competitors. Okay, if you stay where you are, other people around you will catch up. Other people will overtake you. Okay, we're going to look at some examples of that later on. But it's about, fingers crossed, you can stay ahead of your competitors. Fingers crossed, you're far enough ahead. But at the moment, what we've been talking about in all the other series are building a business that is strong, robust, that has an impact, that delivers the results that you want. But legacy is about staying ahead of your competitors. It's about what next. It's about that, the next steps, staying ahead of your competitors. Okay. If you haven't attended any of the others, you can reach out to the university. They will give you all the links to the recordings of sales, profit, order, impact, and there's a couple of webinars on each of those. And please let them know, and they'll let you have those. I know, Tom, you've asked for access to something, and they've reached out to me to see if I can talk to you, so we'll have a chat about that afterwards. So this is the first in 3-part series. Now, this does fit with the other 2. If you read the book by Mike Michalowicz, ongoing adaptation is actually at the end of the chapter. I brought it to the front because I think we need to look at change first. Once we've done that, the next session we're going to look at business and community continuance. Okay, how we can keep our links with the business even though we're creating legacy, how we can keep links with our supply chain, our clients, and the other wider community. And then we're going to, in the final one, talk about the dynamics, the actions, the movement, and the bit like we did with the plan, how we turn those dreams into reality. Okay, and I think we all need to realize that people that have big dreams, and sometimes we think people never achieve their dreams, but people do, because there are tactics that we can use to try and turn dreams into the reality. So that's where this ongoing adaptation fits in those 3 parts of legacy. So let me start with a question. Okay, who founded Coca-Cola? Now, if you know the answer to that, please type it into the chat box. Okay, now I'll give you a clue. I'm going to have to get my books. I can never remember the guy's name. But who founded Coca-Cola? Because this is what legacy is about. You know, legacy doesn't always mean that it's about you. It's about other aspects of how the business is thought about when you're not there. So does anybody know who founded Coca-Cola? I'll give you a heads up. It's not Dr.
I know
Pepper.
the answer, but I don't. I can't type. I can't seem to like be able to type in.
That's
I know
okay.
it's the cola. It's KLA, you know, KOLA or something like that. Family.
Okay. The answer, according to this book, is Asa Griggs Candler. So I think it's probably the Candler family you're thinking of there, George. So yeah, it's, you know, very often, you know, big businesses, you know, we think about some of the big brands. You know, we probably know some of the current ones. You know, we know the, you know, who founded Apple, we know who founded Microsoft, but very often the businesses that have a legacy, you don't really know. McDonald's isn't, you know, McDonald didn't found it. You know, Ray Kroc was a guy who really founded McDonald's as we know it. So what I want you to start thinking about is legacy is about having a business that has an impact without your active participation. Okay, now there's a couple of key things there. The business has got to have an impact. Coca-Cola has an impact. Okay, McDonald's has an impact. Whether you agree with the brands or not, they have an impact. But they have an impact without active participation. Virgin is another one. You know, Richard Branson is involved less and less and less. He's got to be, because of all the different businesses in the businesses. Is he still involved? Yes, but he's not actively involved. So don't think it has to be a business that runs without you completely. Don't think it has to be, legacy means a business when you're not there. It just means you're not as active in the participation of the business. I want you to think about something else, and this is a bit of an off-the-cuff question. For those of you who can put it in the chat box, how many of you feel that you could take a month off from the business and the business would still run effectively whilst you were away? Because that was always my bulletproof test. Yeah, when I had all my businesses, the level I wanted to get it to was so that all those levels were there. The business had a good name, it had the sales, it had the profit, it had the efficiency, and I could take a month off. And the business, actually, I got to the point where when I took a month off, it was better when I came back than it was before I went, which led to different answers. So Frank, yeah, I'd like to think so. Great. Hair salon, yes. Barbers, no. That's interesting, Tom. Yeah. Not at the moment, but it's coming. Yeah, great. We all need to have our litmus test of what it means in active participation. Even though I could take a month off, I still was participating, but not actively. I still received the reports. I still looked at my dashboard of how the business was looking, but I wasn't getting on the phone. I wasn't having emails. I wasn't participating in an active basis, but I certainly was keeping an eye on it, but not actively. So try and work out your own definition as we go through this of what you mean by legacy and what you mean by active participation. And try and remember that the businesses that have some of the best legacies are the ones that nobody actually remembers who founded it or who runs it. Now, a few things to have a think about. In this level of legacy, the business is linked to the mission. you need to make sure that your purpose and your mission that we've worked on in the past or you've worked on separately is what your legacy is linked to. It should be linked to the mission and purpose of the business, not to you as the founder. Okay? It should be clear enough that everybody in the business buys into that mission and purpose. And Frank, you were saying earlier on about sharing the plan. That's an important part of that. Okay? It has everything to do with you and nothing to do with you. Okay, that's an interesting statement. The reason I wrote that is that you have got to be the person that encourages it, creates it, sparks it. That's the title of this, Spark Your Legacy. You have got to be the person that lights the fire under the business and creates that legacy, creates that mission and purpose. And then you've got to realize that the legacy after that has got to run without you. And I got very, very attached to particularly my construction business. And I was offered a huge amount of money to sell out to a company called ROK, back in 2006. And at the time, I was making huge amounts of money. I was driving fast cars, flying helicopters, running a British motorbike team, doing all the stuff that I wanted to do that I thought was great. And my ego got in the way. And I didn't sell the business. And then the recession came in 2008, 2009. And I still managed to sell my business off, but I let it be too much about me. So we have to give it the spark. We have to create the legacy, but then we have to decide that it's not all about us. Okay. As a leader in the business, we need to decide how our company changes the world, impact. If you haven't done that yet, if you haven't decided how the company, not how you personally, but how is the company going to change the world? What impact is it going to have? It could be something very small. It can be something very large. It could be the way you do stuff. It could be the charities that you help. It could be the supply chains that you build. It could be the team that you develop. But how are you going to change? It could be the money that your business brings into your local area that then is spent locally. That's a great change to make on the world. Don't have to be global changes. They can be local changes. And then you need to make sure, and I want you to think about this as you're reading this slide, how will you ensure that your company mission is fulfilled without you? And what I mean by that is start identifying who the champions could be of that mission. Who are going to be your advocates? Who are going to be your champions, your ambassadors in your business that are so passionate about the mission of the business and where the company's going? If anything, they can be more passionate and more enthused about it than you are. So have a think about those champions. Have a think about what changes you want to make. And have a think about some of those things there. So lots of questions to think about. Is your business designed to constantly adapt, improve, finding ways to be better and best? Now, I'm sorry to put the COVID thing up there, but I think we can all accept, and that's why I think, you know, a lot of these webinars have been so well received. If people thought that they could go along in their business without changing and without adapting, without doing anything different, the last 12 months has taught us that that's not possible. Yeah. Even if they've not changed much, something has had to change. Some people have had to do things to comply with the law, lockdown, changes being imposed upon us more than any of us will ever experience in our lifetime, I'm sure. But what you've got to ask is your business designed and built to constantly adapt and improve? Okay. Is it trying to be, remember what I said the definition of legacy is, it's about being ahead of your competitors because you want to be better or you want to be the best. I was talking to somebody earlier and they are, I think in their industry, they do R&D grant funding. And at the moment they're, I think something like 52nd in the table. And their target is to be number 2 by September and be number 1 in 2022. So they want to be the best at what they do. So the things to accept, and these are the things that I want you to write down as we go through this. Not everything is likely to be working well all the time. Accept that. So just jot down something now that you feel isn't working as well as you would like it to. Because if something isn't working as well as you would like it to, then that is something that you should look to change, look to adapt, look to improve. Is there anything that is new that is needed in the business? Okay. And new things are often needed. And I've put there, it doesn't always have to be about service. It doesn't have to be about product. Sometimes it can be a new approach. It can be new thinking. So is there anything new that is needed in your business at the moment? And then we're also going to think a little bit more in the slides. Is your business prepared for change and disruption? Now, I think if anybody would say, no, why should I be? Really, I'm not quite sure what to say about that. But with the pandemic as we have, I think every business needs to be prepared. I think we all know that this disruption is something that could quite easily come again, could quite easily come in this winter, next year. We've got downturn, recession, whatever you want to call it. We've got that bounce back, because obviously disruption doesn't always have to be a downturn. It can be an upturn. I was on an Bank of England webinar the other day, and we were looking at some of the forecasts, some of the economic forecasts, and the surge in business, as I'm sure the travel industry found the other day after Boris's announcement, is also disruptive, isn't it? So are you actually prepared for change? And are you prepared for disruption, both downturn and upturn? Another thing I want you to write down and think about, where are you at the moment? Are you ahead of your competitors? Are you behind your competitors? And if so, how far? Hazel's put, I've just noticed in the chat box, Hazel, I think it's important to make yourself redundant. Yeah, I completely agree. It's a very hard thing to do though, because I've got a client at the moment and he is really struggling with that, because suddenly you're not the most significant person in the business. It's not all about you. And that, for many of us as entrepreneurs, leaders in business, managers in business, that's very hard to handle. And very often, I'm sure, Jackie, you see this in managers in HR, very often they start to sabotage the business. They start to disrupt other people by blaming them for not being good enough, when actually it's their own insecurity and their own lack of significance that's the problem. So where are you behind your competitors or in front of your competitors? So let's talk about evolution, however you want to pronounce it. I've put my favorite slide up there with the horse tied to the plastic chair. Change very often is all something that's in your head. It's the voices that you say to yourself. And I've used the story there of Netflix. Netflix is one of my favorite stories. I signed up for Netflix many years ago, and they took over a company called Love Film. I don't know if any of you remember that, where you actually used to order it and they used to post it to you, used to watch it and then post it back. And you think about Netflix and how they've adapted and how they've evolved. Their mission and the purpose of bringing good quality programs, bringing TV, films, documentaries to everyone is still their mission. It's still their purpose. But the way that they've evolved and the way that they've taken advantage of things like the pandemic is extraordinary, really. You look at when you go on Netflix now, how many mainstream actors are in Netflix films, that are in Netflix series. Every time you look, it's a Netflix original. Even they've overtaken massively Amazon on that, and they've cornered the market. So think about Netflix, think about the way that they've changed from delivering those films through the letterbox to now having a streaming service in the way that they've got. And how could you evolve in your business but still keep that same purpose? Think about the impact that Netflix have had. Okay. Certainly in this pandemic, they've given a lot of relief to people that, you know, they've just maxed out on box sets while they've been furloughed and sat at home. A lot of people I know have watched more documentaries on Netflix than anything else, than National Geographic or anything else. So what impact have they had? I mentioned Virgin earlier on. How do you think Virgin will adapt next? You think about the holiday industry. Do you think Virgin will stand still? Do you think Richard Branson isn't working on the plans of what to do with the airlines, the rail industries, etc.? You know, these businesses are always evolving. Sometimes they're small items of evolution, sometimes they're quite large. So I want you to think about two things. Who do you see needs to adapt now? Okay, so I want you to think about people in your business. I want to think about yourself. What are the people that you think need to be adapting, that need to change to help you make those evolution steps in your business? Okay, think about the people. List any names down. Think of any positions. You know, who needs to really sort of step up? There was a great printer in Lincoln. I shan't name him because some of you might know him, but he's passed away now. But I remember having a coaching session with him some years ago, and he knew he had to change his business because he was doing standard printing. And he tried to change. He tried to make the business different, and not one single member of his team would embrace the change. And the business stayed the same. And not only did the business die, but the guy who ran the business died. Had a massive, massive heart attack. I think it was a heart attack or stroke. So the first thing you're going to look at is who are the people that need to adapt. And Netflix, Virgin, build a business with people who are willing to evolve and are willing to change or embrace it. Okay, they want to become more. You remember we had the pair of shoes with the small feet in them last time. You know, about getting people to become more. What do you need to adapt next? What do you think your items of evolution are? So once you've got that list, and what I'd like you to do, I'm just looking conscious of time. Whilst I go through what stops businesses adapting, what stops businesses evolving, and I want you to think about this, I want you to make sure you've written some things down. So I want you to have written down some names of people that need to evolve, need to change, or be involved in that evolution, or things that need to adapt, things that come to your mind that you need to think of. So think about those, and please put them in the chat box. I'd love to know what they are, and I'd love to perhaps bounce some of those around. And if you've got a question about any of those, or I can't think of any people, or how do I handle this, or what do I work on that, please type the questions in as we go along as well. So things that get in the way. The first thing and top of the list normally is you. You are probably the biggest obstacle that will get in the way of the business adapting and evolving on an ongoing basis. Some of it will be conscious, some of it will be subconscious. Some of it will be the fact that you don't like, and I'm sorry for those of you who are parents in the room, particularly new parents, but yeah, if you think about the business being your baby, you don't like the fact that somebody's telling you your business, your baby's ugly. Okay, nobody likes to be told their baby's ugly. And it's the same with the business. So when people start telling you that things need to change, your team start telling you things need to change, there's always a resistance. Your team, the story I just told there, the printer, if your team are getting in the way of your business adapting and leaving that legacy and evolving and changing, then they could be the death of your business. And that's how serious, that's why I mentioned that story. For this guy, yeah, when I went to his funeral, I was absolutely gutted because I knew how hard this guy wanted to make his business work. I knew how much stress it was causing him. And the dreams he'd got, and he could have done it. It could be your managers. You know, are they hanging on to significance? Are they unwilling to change? Are they protecting their own little empire? Fear of change. People are often in fear of change. I want to break a myth on that. I don't think people have a large fear of change. I think they have a fear of being changed. Okay. Is it the fear of change or being changed that's getting on? Is it cash flow? Because sometimes it is just cash. That's why I was talking to the R&D guy earlier on, because there are so many R&D opportunities at the moment. It's a pot of money that the government are trying to give out, and they've got a surplus in there. So cash flow could be the issue. Processes, technology, investment, and the big one, time. The number of people that when I talk about adapting and changing, they say we just don't have the time. We're too busy. Either too busy growing, too busy fighting fires. So I want you to look at that list. And, Hazel, you put here the director stuck in the ways, Frank to work with the owner manager, to refrain from micromanaging. Yeah, so thanks for sharing those. Is there anything on that list there that you recognize that you need to overcome, that you need to work on? Is it cash flow? Is it fear of change? So write something down, because having an action list, which is what we're going to do at the end of this, as we always do, of what needs to change, what actions you're going to take, is great. But if you don't remove some of these roadblocks that are in the way, or you're not working on some of the roadblocks, change will not take place. So I want you really to think about overcoming these. The other thing I want to do is share some ways. Okay. I have a piece of paper. Okay. Actually, it's one of my favorite films, Frozen. I love the film Frozen, by the way. Absolutely. It's one of those. Shrek and Frozen are my two favorite films, along with Forrest Gump. So now you're my three favorite films. But the first thing you've got to do is know to let it go. Okay. If there is anything, as we go through this webinar and through the other webinars that we're going to talk about when it comes to legacy, anything that you feel you're hanging on to, write it down. Realize that you have got to let some things go. And I've got a piece of paper, I've got it up on my wall. It's a reminder for me that I have to let things go. I'll come to the one in the middle in a second, because we covered this in one of the recent webinars. The other thing is, don't think big goals, don't think big dreams without breaking them down into small steps. If you're going to make change, think about what we've just said there about the fear of change, cash flow, processes. If you make the steps too big, cash flow will become an issue if it's not now. Fear of change will become an issue. So put lots of steps in the way. Little steps. Taking that first step is important. So think about the steps that you can take. The big one I put in the middle there is think generationally. Think about generations. I couldn't say it last time, could I, neither? But what you need to think about is when you think about legacy, it's about people beyond you. It's about realizing that you're there to build your success personally, the business success, the business legacy for people outside of you. It might be your family. It might be your team. It might be the apprentice that started with you last year that you see the potential to be a business owner of the future. It could be the supply chain. It could be a client who might acquire you. What is the generation steps? Think beyond yourself. Okay. 3 really important keys to unlock it: letting it go, small steps, and thinking more up and down the generations. Who's coming up the chain? Who needs to go out the top of the chain? Who can come into the chain? So let's do some more work, make some more notes. Looking at the notes, let's just make sure you've got something down. If you haven't got anything down yet, what do you need to adapt, improve, or change in your business right now or next? So we might have some things on there that are things for the future. They might be things for next year. But which of those things? Just circle them, highlight them, find some way of putting styles aside, which are the things that you need to adapt, improve, or change in your business right now or next? Not in 2 years' time, not in 12 months' time, right now. Okay, just mark them, highlight them. And again, if you've got something, please type it into the chat box as well. Yeah, George has put here, the fashion and textiles industry really needs to adapt fast to produce multifunctional product. Yeah, great. And if it doesn't, George, it will do exactly what the textile industry did in Mansfield when they all relied upon making underwear for Marks and Spencers. They didn't change. Marks and Spencers went overseas. They didn't look at the trend, and the textile industry in Mansfield, where I come from, died, and it employed thousands of people, like the mining industry in Mansfield as well. So then for those items, and you can do this for all of the items, does each of the item move you forward? Because if a change doesn't move you forward, if it only helps you stand still, then it's not really something that should be a focus when it comes to what we're talking about here. You can still work on it, but it won't be a focus. It's got to move you forward, and it's got to add to the contribution, because that's what we're talking about, legacy, sparking your legacy. Does it give something to people? Doesn't matter who it gives to. It might give to you, it might give to your team, it might give to the business. Does it contribute? Then I want you to think about, do you have a culture that embraces change? If you go out there and you say, great, I've been on Simon's webinar. This is what I used to do when I used to go back to my business, by the way. He said, I've been on a course. We're going to make some changes. And you could see them all go, oh, no. Or when he's come back off a holiday, I've been thinking we're going to make some changes. Do you have a culture that embraces that change? And if you don't, think about those roadblocks. Is it the management that's affecting that culture? Is it you? Is it cash flow? Do people want to make change, but they know that they can't because either they fear it or they just know there's not the budget for it? Hazel's put here, online sales delivery allows 24/7 operation. Yeah. Just remind me, Hazel, just put in the chat box what it is that you're delivering. Okay. Now, Frank gave a really good point at the top here of the session. Does everyone know your mission? Frank, you said that you'd shared your plan. If you can just take yourself off of mute for a second. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're able to take yourself off of mute.
Yep.
Yep. So you were sharing just at the beginning of this that you have rolled out your strategic plan and shared it with the team. How much of the mission have you shared with the team? I mean, you've been on quite a few of these webinars now. Do you feel that people understand the mission, know the mission of the business?
It's a good question. It's always an interesting one to try and answer honestly, because I think in any business you've got a diverse range of people,
Yeah.
not just academically, but just other skills. And we always we actually put, like, I think, well, I'm generalizing. I know most people or companies will put their mission or their vision up on the wall somewhere.
Yeah.
We try and keep it as simple as possible, and it gets back to one of the comments in the previous webinar about being the best or being first.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my head around, could you be both just yet? I don't think you can, but we're working on that. But yeah, get back to the mission. We suggest that we want to be the #1 brand in our adult soft drink sector.
Yeah.
And it's all about making the best quality drinks from using natural sort of resources and natural ingredients. So that's our mission, to be the best in the brand, or the best brand in the adult soft drink sector.
Yeah. And it's interesting there that you said, and yeah, thanks for sharing that. And just give you a top tip, and other people that are on this as well. When you put a mission up on the wall, and that's absolutely what you should do, and a lot of us do that, and we share it, very often we have our own interpretation of that mission because we created it. We understand the detail of it in our heads. What you need to do, at least once a year, at least in personal reviews, the first question should be to ask the person you're reviewing to tell you what your mission is. If that person can't tell you clearly what your mission is, then you know you need to do something about that. So the easiest way to check understanding and I know this from training, is to get people to repeat it back to you and show that they understood it. And in our business, we should be doing that on a regular basis. If you review your plan every quarter, as we talked about last time, every 90 days, make sure that the people that are reviewing that plan can give it you back. Perhaps pick on somebody, get somebody to share it. But at least do it personally, privately, in personnel reviews. Get them to tell you what the mission is. Because if not everybody understands the mission, none of this is going to work. And they're not going to get behind the change. They're not going to get behind the legacy. They're really not going to get it. They're just going to be in a job. And yes, you're right, Frank. People have different levels. Yeah, good example is a janitor at NASA. Yeah, everybody understands what the mission is. You look at the Mars thing, you could see all those people in that control center when that rover landed on Mars. They all had their role to play. They all had their little bit, but they all knew what the mission was. And that's how you want your business to be. So try and get people to tell you what it is. The other question is, and Frank, I'll let you mute yourself up if that's okay. The other thing to think about is how often you look at innovation and adaptation. Do you review it formally once a month, once a quarter? Some businesses would need to do it regular. If you're in tech, I work with a lot of tech businesses and a lot of fast growing businesses. You've got to do it quickly. Some it's weekly, some it's monthly. It would never be more than monthly. For most of us, it's probably going to be quarterly, 6 monthly or annually. But we should formally, you mentioned board meetings earlier on. If you've got something where you're formally sat down, make it an agenda item. Put innovation, legacy, evolution, whatever you want to call it, adaptation. Put it on the agenda. Might do it quarterly, might do it every half year, or you might do it annually. And then I want you to think about now a final thing as we finish off this slide. Who will you let it go to? Who do you see in your business at the moment that you will, not who you're thinking of, but who will you let it go to? Who will you pass on some of your stuff in adapting, changing, moving the business forward, driving that business forward and that mission forward? Who will you let it go to? And it might be nobody. If it's nobody, then you need to look at who you're going to bring into that business to do that with. But who will you let it go to? Could be somebody outside the business. I've got a client at the moment who has an external provider who actually they're looking at making an offer for him to come in the business and become the MD of the business, because the business owner just doesn't want to be MD anymore. So it doesn't have to be somebody in the business. So hopefully that's giving you some things to think about. Tom's put here, improve cash flow to help create change and implement change. Great. I think I get the gist of that. Yeah. Hazel, we're a farmer purchasing group. Okay. Yeah. So most of the sales are via telephone. Yeah. So online will help you evolve that. Definitely. Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Most businesses now, most people, I get more messages from clients after 5 o'clock than I've ever had before, because people are busy doing their stuff. And at the end of the day, that's when they sit down and they do some of their admin and their purchasing and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely. Okay. SWOT. I mentioned in the last slide about, in a few slides, keeping ahead. When you do a SWOT analysis, and I'm sure some of you are aware of a SWOT analysis, some of you might not be, but strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's the part of many plans. It's part of the one-page strategic plan. But I always like to make sure there's a separate T at the end. And when you do any planning, when you do any SWOT analysis, whatever the purpose is, whether it's for funding, whether it's to work with the team, the last T is trends to watch. So what is the trend? Is the trend, to take business away from the high street? I got a client some years ago who did interior fit outs for high-end retail, particularly down in London. And he saw the trend very much was that, high-end retailers at one point were growing, but now they're moving off the high street. A lot of the big brands are moving off. So what is a trend that you need to be watching? Okay, make sure you've got trends, and it might not just be one trend, it could be multiple trends. Yeah, as you said there, Hazel, more people are moving to online, less people are using the telephone. Other than my mobile, I actually don't have a telephone in my office. I don't have a landline at all. So what are the trends to watch? From Tom's point of view, how many people have learnt to cut their own hair? How many people have tried and made such a mess of it? How many people are going for different styles? Interesting, Tom. I've got a friend, Chris, who had a real head of hair. You can see, I don't have that, but Chris had a real head of hair, and because of the first lockdown, he decided to get a pair of shears and do a grade 1. He can never go back to having a full head of hair because now he's got gaps that aren't growing back. So he's screwed now. So trends to watch. I want to give you a few other ways that you can look at adaptation and how you can get it ongoing. Learn from others. Look at businesses that are in your supply chain, that are competitors, that are the businesses that you aspire to be like. Learn from them. Look at what they're studying. What are they learning? What do you need to learn? Okay. Model other people. I use the phrase R&D for research and development. I like the use of R&D for something different. Rip off and duplicate. If somebody is doing something well, why don't you take what they're doing and use it in your business? Okay, copyrights and patents and everything else, obviously being considered, but learn from other people. The world's most successful businesses started off by modeling somebody else. The world's best musicians started by modeling and having a hero of somebody else. The other thing to do is encourage participation. Do not think you have to do this on your own. Get people buying into the process. Interesting, Frank, you mentioned about, do you want to be first or do you want to be best? What does better or best look like? Okay. Is it something that people will sing your praises about, the like and share? Will people be raving fans? Is it about being a recognized brand? Or is it about having a business that actually you might be one of Lincolnshire's best kept secrets, but you know, and your business know how much you give, what the heart of the business is? There are some amazing businesses out there that are very successful that you never hear of. Some of the world's richest people are people that you don't know the names of, but what they do, their giving, their way that they run their business is seen in their industries, in their sectors, as being the best. So sometimes it's the heart. It's not about being the recognized brand. Sometimes it's the heart of the business. I don't care if anybody remembers my business anymore or my name. What I care about is the people that benefit from it. That's what drives me. So I'm definitely the person with the heart. So think about that. What does best or better look like? Jot something down, put it in the chat box. What does best or better look like for you and for your business? And then we'll get into the last couple of slides. We've got about 4 minutes left, so actually we'll probably be just about on time. The other thing I will challenge you to do, if you are struggling with any of this, always go back and make sure that you've mastered those 3 levels. You've got to put your own oxygen mask on first and make sure the business has got what it needs to move on. So is it still mastering its sales? Is it still doing that exceptionally well, bringing in the cash? Is it reducing the amount of time it takes people to pay you? Is it reducing the amount of time it takes to get purchase orders, etc.? Is it increasing profit? And is it improving order efficiency, productivity? Are you sticking to the purpose? Are you being the best that you can be in those areas? And don't let them drop. Are you measuring the success of those? Because generally, if you want to be better and the best, you've got to actually still keep all of those at a high level. If you feel that sales is dropping, go straight back down, fix it. It's that business hierarchy of needs. That's why we mentioned it right at the beginning. You've got to maintain those lower levels. So if anything in evolution, adaptation isn't moving, isn't working, cash flow is a problem. If cash flow is a problem, go and fix the sales issues. If team is a problem, if productivity is a problem, go and fix order. So make sure that if anything that you've looked at today has a roadblock in the way, look down and fix that. Make sure you're mastering that first. Because the only way you'll get to be the best or to be better is certainly to master that getting. I know so many businesses who start their business quite, with good intentions of having an impact and leaving a legacy, but they never do it because they never get to deliver the success in the business that enables them to do it. Bill Gates only gives out his billions to all his charities because he's made the buildings in the first place, whether you like the guy or not. Final couple of things. Don't forget, you need everybody on board. And what I mean by that isn't just your team. Get help, get advice. There are people out there that will help you with funding. There are people that will help you with HR to get your team on board. There are people that will help you with sales. There will be people that can help you get a great haircut for that presentation that you've got. I'm sure Tom will do it when he's able to. When? Can't believe it's, is it 12th of April? Nightmare. But, there are people out there that can help you with branding, with websites. Get the help. But when you go to these people, don't just go to them, get them on board. Share your changes, share your vision, share your mission, share the evolution that you're on and get them buying into it. Okay, really important to do. And remember, you do need to make shifts. Make sure that you're putting changes into your plans. What we just talked about today needs to go back into your next 90-day plan. Don't take big steps. Be the master tweaker. So I used to call myself. Keep moving and keep that focus on the vision and the mission. If you keep the focus on that, then you'll keep driving forwards. So look at that, bang on time, 11:30. 3 steps. I always ask you to write 3 things down. So what 3 things can you do from today's webinar before we meet on the next webinar in 2 weeks' time? What 3 things can you do in the next 2 weeks? And then out of those 3 things, what's the next thing that you can do? What's the one that you can make your next step? What's the priority? Let's put a bit of order into them. So 3 steps. Look at your notes very quickly. If you're watching the recording, go back to the recording. Look at your notes. What 3 things can you do? And what is the thing that you're going to do first? What's that first step that you're going to take? Okay. I've probably rattled through that because of the 10-minute start a little bit quicker than I wanted to. But if I know a couple of people have had to jump off, David's had to go and do his usual course and put his mask on as he shot off. If I'm happy to stay on for 5-10 minutes if anybody's got any questions or wants just to talk through some of the things we've got to talk about, changes. Has anybody got anything that they'd like to talk through? If you've got to jump off, I understand that. But has anybody got any questions or anything that they would like to talk through? Just either put it in the chat box so I can ask you to come off mute, or if you want to, just take yourself off of mute and ask it anyway. And for those of you who've got to jump off or haven't got any questions, then obviously you can stay on and listen to questions, or watch tumbleweed go across my screen as nobody asks questions, or of course you can jump off. Any questions? Anything to talk through? Let's use this as a bit of a mastermind, because somebody else on this session might have done something that you're struggling with and overcome it. Anybody got anything? As people jump off. No? You stunned you all into silence. George there would strive to be better than the best by providing better, useful products. Great. I suppose the definition, George, for that is, that means something to you. What does that mean to other people? How would a stranger, how would a child understand that? You know, Patrick Cialdini talks in his book, The Power of Influence, Sell to the Child. Do it as though a sort of 10, 11-year-old child would understand it. If you can do it in that way, then generally anybody in the business will understand it. And it's like you said, Frank, about different people doing things in different levels. Sell it to the child. Okay, any questions? Any points? No? Stunned your own signs. Okay, so remember, I'm just going to try and bring it up. Next time, we're going to talk about the continuity in business and how you can keep the levels of success moving forward in your business and also outside of the business in your impact. And then the last session is on turning the dreams into reality, taking the action. 2 weeks today, same time, same link. If you know people who might benefit from this, it is still open to more people. We've got more people registering for it. A lot of people watching the recordings of this. If you want the recording, let me know. And Tom, I've got a question for you. Did Lottie get the information over to you from the university? Because she'd asked her for some information. She messaged me and I told her she got it, but she said she was going to get it over to you.
I haven't received it yet. I just wanted to get the worksheet from session 1 and 2, just
right,
so I could print them out and make that properly.
Okay, I've got your email, Tom, so I'll send them directly to you if she's not sent them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was those individual worksheets you were talking about, wasn't it? The single ones.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll get those sent off.
Thank you, Simon.
If anybody else wants those, just let me know, and I'll send those over as well. Yep, Jackie's put there. Let's try. How can I get help with my website for online sales? Yep. So there is funding, as Jackie's put in there on the Lincolnshire site. The digital voucher. Also, if you, I don't know where you're Louth, aren't you, George? So if you speak to Trudy, is the contact at the Lincolnshire Enterprise Partnership. Trudy covers your area. Tony O'Brien, if any of you are in the city of Lincoln, Tony O'Brien is the contact. And I know she sent me an email the other day with the digital vouchers link as well. So they're available now for that. You have to spend money to get it back. But you do actually have get quite a substantial amount. I know some people are getting a couple of £1,000 towards a website. So yeah, definitely have a look at that. But Trudy's the contact for you in Louth. Okay, any final questions before we jump off? No, Jackie, you've got the link to have a session with me, and we'll talk about how I can find out more about your business and refer you. Frank, 3 actions, how to balance the objectives of both operations and commercial. Well, that's an interesting one, yeah. Hold that thought. If you want, Frank, drop me an email with some more information on that, because that would be a good topic to include in the continuance, because that really talks about balancing that for next time as well. So happy to cover that in the next time session a little bit more.
What's the best email address, Simon?
For me, if you send it to Simon at sterling-coaching.com, Sterling with an E.
Sterling-coaching.com. Okay.
Yeah, a bit more detail about that, and we can certainly have a chat and work on that. It's always good to actually roll the sleeves up and do something that's benefits some business, because other people will benefit from it as well. Definitely. Okay. Jackie, yep, thanks for that. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. I'll let you guys get on with the rest of your day. Enjoy it and keep on top of the information, keep on top of the productivity program. Make sure you're using all the facilities that are there, and I will catch up with you in 2 weeks' time. Speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.